My name is Roslyn Young, and in this video I'd like to tell you why I think it's a good thing to use a chart and a pointer in class. Students need to have a complete inventory of the sounds in a language in order to be able to learn it properly. It's completely unreasonable to imagine that a student can simply imitate sounds when they don't know even how many sounds there are that they're supposed to be making. So that one of the most important things that they need is some way of knowing how many sounds there are. And a chart of this kind allows this. This is why it's necessary to have a phonemic chart in the class. However, there are a lot of other things that can be had from a phonemic chart. Just as in a film you have titles at the beginning, and everyone knows in fact that the film is about to start. In the same way, if I am in the classroom and I walk towards the chart, this is like the titles. Everybody knows what's going to happen next, so that everybody is ready for something on pronunciation. And this is very important because it means that their attention is with what I'm doing. The second reason is that when you have all these elements in front of you, it's possible for a student to know that he masters, for example, this sound here, this is not a problem, this one here, this is not a problem, but that he still has problems with the th in English, for example. It means that he knows what he knows, and he also knows what he doesn't know, so that he's in a position to work on those elements of the language that he knows that he doesn't master. He knows where he's at in the learning process. Another reason is that students enjoy pointing, and they enjoy watching other people pointing. It keeps them present to the task, and human beings like to be present to the task. The notion of present is really very important, in fact. We all know that students can't learn anything if they're not present. We know that it's important for people to be present. If I want to use a chart, then I can do this. And that tells the class that I'm about to begin. And that means stop what you're doing and look here, because this is where the action is going to be taking place. And my students do it too, very quickly when they come out to point. They do the same thing. This tells me that they know why they're doing it, because it makes the whole class alert. Being present and pointing on a chart creates a healthy tension, which is a very important part of the class. The students are there, they are implicated in what's happening, and they are watching as it unrolls. It unrolls at a certain speed. If I start to point, I'm going to point a word, for example, and T, and they don't know what's going to happen next until I point. It might be this. Teach. It might be this. And they have to wait until the process unfolds, until they know what in fact was pointed. Now the advantage of this is that they have to hold it in their minds, and while they're holding it in their minds, it's in their minds. They can't simply look at it written on a page. They take it in or they don't, they sub-vocalize or they don't. With this they know that since they're going to have to say it aloud afterwards, they will need to hold it within themselves. This also gives the time for them to sub-vocalize. This is the very best way of holding it in them, is to make the sounds within their minds as the pointing unfolds. The fact that they are present to the pointing, and the fact that they have to keep it in their minds until the pointing is finished, leads to a much higher level of retention. We don't want students memorizing. We don't want students to be trying to remember things. What we want is for students to put whatever we teach them into their systems as a functioning know-how. And this is what a chart allows one to do. Pointing is ephemeral. In the same way as speech is ephemeral, when I say something, unless you listen, it's gone forever. It just disappears into the air. When I point something, unless you watch, it vanishes. And so students become very aware of the fact that they have to be present. Here too, it's a question of presence. And this is a very important point in any classroom, whatever the subject, whatever the age of the student. Another important thing with pointing is that when students are looking at the chart here, they're not looking in a book. This means that heads are up. They are actually watching things. They just have to turn their head and they find somebody else whose head is up, so that we're in a position where it's extremely easy for them to enter into a conversation with other people. And this is what we want. English, in any language in fact, requires that students speak, and so we'll give them every opportunity to speak. There are some very practical reasons why pointing is important too. For example, if I'm pointing, I can stand to one side. I can point like this. It's the same word, teacher. If I'm writing it on the board, then I have to write it like this. And I'm standing in front of the board and my back is turned to the students. When I'm pointing, I can be pointing from here, and half of me at least is with the students, and they know this. When I write on the board, I'm aware of the fact that I lose the contact with the students for just a couple of seconds, but there is something which is broken when one writes on the board. As well as that, of course, the board then has to be cleaned, and if it's a blackboard, there will be chalk dust, and if it's a whiteboard, there will be that dreadful black stuff that gets on your hands. Pointing allows us to do all the things that you can do in phonetics without getting dirty. Nobody gets dirty. Another useful thing about a chart is that the teacher and students can work at the same time. I usually stand to this side and point like this, but if a student comes, I would expect them to work from this side, and they too would point like this. And so we can work together, I from my side and the student from his or her side. I can simply move back a little from my position and put another student on this side, and we can all see what's going on. The whole class can see what's going on. This is not always the case when people try and write on the board. And as you know, teachers and more often students have a lot of trouble writing nicely on the board. Not everyone's handwriting is legible when it's done on a whiteboard, for example, because there's not enough resistance. The focus of a class has to change very often. It has to move continually. And one of the problems is for the students to know what the focus of the class is at any particular moment. If I move into the chart in this way, students know immediately that this is going to be the focus of the class for the next however many seconds or minutes, so that they know what the class is about for that time. One of the good things about a chart is that students can see the whole picture. They've got the wood and they've also got the trees, and so that they're in a position to know, what they don't know, and what they're going to have to work on. Another aspect of using a chart is that it allows students to realize immediately, because they are going to have to be saying things, that pronunciation is a know-how. It's not an intellectual thing. You have to know how to move your muscles in a particular way to produce a particular sound. And so this tells them immediately from the very beginning that we are going to first of all be serious about pronunciation, and secondly we're going to treat it as a know-how that they have to know how to do. One of the big problems in teaching pronunciation is that teachers model. When I model something for my students, I am implying that they will be able to hear it correctly, first of all, and we know that this is not the case. Even in the 1930s, Trubetskoy pointed out that we listen to a language through the sieve of our own language. This is called Trubetskoy's sieve. So, the student is going to be able to hear it properly. He is going to be able to hear the difference between what was said and what he is saying. He is going to know exactly what he has to do in order to modify what he did in order to obtain what I did. There are three good reasons why students are unable to do this. First of all, they don't hear it properly. Secondly, they're incapable of comparing it, and if they can compare it, they don't know what to do with themselves so that they can say it. If pronunciation is taught as a motor skill from the very beginning, and students are taught to explore, then little by little they learn a new way of putting together what their mouth produces and what their ears hear. When they do it, they know what they do with their muscles, they know how their muscles are being used, and they know that they are going to be hearing something which is different because their muscles are doing something which is different. And so in this way they can build up this new way of listening, which is listening to L2. This is particularly important in English because there are so many differences between English and other languages. Thank you.